I'm going to wait to see if it's streaming. I'm going to stay 1.5 hours here today. I think I'm gonna start with the Italian stuff. I already encountered an error. I'm planning to doing the blog today. I think it's gonna take a very long time to do the blog because it is slightly different than everything I've done so far. And I'm gonna have to use the MDX and Team UI, so I suspect that I'm gonna take a lot of time to understand and learn these things. And I'm probably gonna encounter some problems in the way. So expect at least 1 week to do this thing, and obviously I'm gonna work on this constantly, so it's never gonna be truly finished, but at least the fundamentals, the fundamental structure in the beginning, I think is gonna take at least 1 week. And I not sure what's the right word, but I think it's confused. I confused the amount of time I have to build this, because I made 8 videos, I think, in advance, and then I thought that would, because of that, I would have anywhere between 8 to 10 days to make the blog. But actually, if I post one video every 2 days, then I have 16 days. So I think, based on the last scheduled video, it's gonna go live in the 25th of January. So I have until then to do all this stuff. And I think I'm gonna finish the blog before that time. So yeah, let me open the Italian stuff. I already encountered some problem there with the blog example, so I think I'm gonna watch the video from the guy again, then remove all the packages. It's a problem with a hash function inside of a OpenSSL library, I think, and it has to do with Node.js, but I have no idea how to fix it. And it's on the blog example, so I'm not sure how long I'm gonna stay, how much time I'm gonna stay trying to figure that out, because it might be essential, because it might be something that has to do with the formatting, with the MD thing of one of the libraries that uses MDX in order to be able to create articles for the blog. So if it's a problem with one of these libraries, then I'm gonna have to spend a bunch of time trying to figure this out, because it's gonna be essential for the project, even if I don't follow this example here. Obviously, I don't want this to be the case, because I wanna finish this, and I don't wanna spend a bunch of time trying to solve this issue here. That is just a package. And if it's one of these two, I think then I'm gonna have to solve it.
Fa,
Fa,
Does.
fisso,
fisso,
Set. Unchanging.
3,
3,
3.
desiderare,
desiderare,
Desire.
aria,
aria,
Air.
bene,
bene,
Well.
anche,
anche,
Also.
giocare,
giocare,
Play.
piccolo,
piccolo,
Small.
fine,
fine,
End.
mettere,
mettere,
Put.
casa,
casa,
Home.
leggere,
leggere,
Read.
mano,
mano,
Hand.
portare,
portale,
Carry.
grande,
grande,
Large.
compitare,
compitare,
Spell. Words.
aggiungere,
aggiungere,
Add.
anche,
anche,
Even. Also.
terra,
terra,
Land.
qui,
qui,
Here.
Devo.
Devo.
I must.
Grande.
Grande.
Big.
Alto.
Alto.
High, tall.
Tale.
Tale.
Such.
Seguire.
Seguire.
Follow.
Atto.
Atto.
Enact.
Perché.
Perché.
Why.
Chiedere.
Chiedere.
Ask.
Maschi.
Maschi.
Men.
Cambiamento.
Cambiamento.
A change.
È andato.
È andato.
He, she went.
Luce.
Luce.
Light.
Tipo.
Tipo.
Kind of thing.
Spento.
Spento.
Turned off.
Bisogno.
Bisogno.
Need.
Casa.
Casa.
House.
Immagine.
Immagine.
Image.
Provare.
Provare.
Try.
Noi.
Noi.
Us.
Di nuovo.
Di nuovo.
Again.
Animale.
Animale.
Animal.
Punto.
Punto.
Point.
Madre.
Madre.
Mother.
Mondo.
Mondo.
World.
Vicino.
Vicino.
Near.
Costruire.
Costruire.
Build.
Se stesso.
Se stesso.
Himself.
Terra.
Terra.
Earth.
Padre.
Padre.
Father.
I think I'll watch the video first and then I'll see if I fix this stuff here.
In this module, we're going to talk about building a blog with MDX. So first off, I want to talk about what MDX is and compare it against a CMS, a content management system, which is something you may or may not have already heard about. So MDX is Markdown for the component era. Now, what this means is you've probably seen the Markdown format that allows you to easily style your text content. If you've ever used GitHub, that's how you can write content on there and insert bold, italic, images, all sorts of things like that. MDX allows you to integrate components inside of your Markdown. So if you look at this example here, you're rendering a heading, some text, some bold text, and even a fully custom component. Now, the best part about MDX is that you have complete control over everything, and it really pairs well with something like React, which is component-based. So using MDX, you can really easily start a blog and manage the full lifecycle of those posts, whether that's the content, the images, or even inserting custom graphs and diagrams directly into that content. That's MDX. That's what we're going to be working with today. Now, how does that compare against a CMS? Well, the most popular CMS is definitely WordPress. Like it says, it powers 35% of the internet, which is just insane. So many sites out there are depending on WordPress, and part of the reason is because it makes the setup process easier than a lot of the other solutions that used to exist, and it bundled the UI for managing the content along with the data, the SQL database. Now, this approach has its pros and cons. Now, in 2020 and looking into the future, we're seeing more people transition to headless CMSs. Now, what a headless CMS means is rather than including that interface for managing the content along with your application, so if you ever use WordPress, it's like that WordPress admin. Instead of doing that, you're going to provide an API to access your content, and then the interface for managing that content is its own separate thing. So it might be its own site, or you might host it yourself somewhere else, but regardless, it's decoupled, and the way you interact with that information is via APIs. Now, why would I choose a CMS over MDX? Well, in my opinion, some of the biggest ones are who is contributing to your site. If it's only developers love Markdown, so that format might be better for them. But if you have other people, like non-developers contributing content to your site, people doing marketing, writing that prose so that other people can read it and you can put content out on your site, you might want to consider CMS because it adds that GUI layer on top of the content. Another thing is the handling of assets. So when you're using MDX, a lot of the time what people do is they bundle their assets along with the repository. So for example, in the blog that we're going to be creating, we're also going to have our assets hosted alongside our blog. So we're the ones managing that. And what that means is that you have to manage things like image sizing, compression, optimization. Yes, there are plugins and ways to do this a little bit better, but at the end of the day, you're still the one in charge of that. Now with some CMSs, a lot of this is already baked in. When you upload images to their platform, they'll take care of scaling, resizing, compressing, all of that stuff. So based on that, it really depends on your use case. And I think that this tweet is actually a really good take on the differences between CMSs and some of these new players, two of which I'm going to talk about here in a second. And as developers, we just want an easy endpoint to access this content. But designers and managers, the content is still king, and that's why WordPress is still so popular. But what we're seeing is that there's just a ton of these new tools coming out that blend all of these different approaches, specifically like static generated sites with Next.js, which we're going to talk about. And it makes it, one, there's a lot more options to choose from, but two, they're all getting better because they're learning from each other. So I'm really excited about the future of managing content on the internet and the platforms that we use to do that. So two of the headless CMS solutions that I want to talk about are Contentful and Sanity. And the reason I've chosen these two over maybe some of the other ones is I've worked with them a little in the past, and I've enjoyed the experience, at least from the developer side of managing this content and working with their APIs and their interface. So if you're interested in using a CMS, specifically a headless CMS, and trying to try it out with Next.js, I'd recommend giving these two a try. Check them out. And really, I'm not going to go in depth on how you actually hook one of these up because there are some example applications out there for this. But one thing I want to show is that because it's just an API to manage the content on their website or on their editor, you're going to manage all of that. And then inside your application, it's just using get initial props like we talked about, fetching data in the last modules to allow you to then access that content via an API request and display it on your page. So it's really the same concept. It's just putting the content in a different location. Now, we're not going to talk about that specifically. Instead, we're going to focus on MDX. Now, I think it's helpful to show an example of what a finished blog with MDX might look like to get you an understanding of what your application could be. And the Mastering Next.js website is actually built using Next.js, obviously, and MDX. And here you'll see at the /blog endpoint, I have a list of these two blog posts I have on my site, both wrote with MDX. And when I click on one of these articles, you'll see that I can load images, I can do links, I can do lists, I can do code blocks, basically anything I want, plus the ability to then inject completely separate React components like this marketing blur down here at the bottom of the course. This isn't part of my markup for this post, but I have full customization for how I want to display this text. Now, if you look over here on the right, I actually have this post pulled up, and you'll see it's just like writing Markdown on GitHub or anywhere else with the added ability then of being able to include components wherever you want. So for example, at the top, I'm importing this date component, and it's doing some date formatting here to display that date, which is processed from this meta information at the top of the file. We also export the contents of this post as a post component, and that's going to provide all the different styling and wrapping and passing the components for how to render things. Now, this is a little bit more complicated of an example, so we're going to start with something a lot more simple. Now, to do that, I've spun up a new folder containing a new Next.js application, and all it has is a package.json that defines the dependencies here for MDX, the plugin for Next to use MDX, and then Next in React. So we have this package. I've installed the dependencies already. To configure our application to understand MDX, we need to override the Next config and use that plugin. So let's say with MDX, which is that plugin, let's require that, and then say we're going to export this with MDX. Now we need to pass some configuration options into this plugin, and one of those is page extensions, which tells the plugin which file extensions to look for. So we want JS and we want MDX. Okay, so now our application is configured to understand MDX, and now we need an entry point into the application so that we can view those files. So let's make a new folder, pages, and then a new file inside of here, index.mdx. This is going to be the entry point into the application. So we'll say mastering Next.js, hello world. Save this and run it locally. And we can see the new MDX page that we created over here on the left with the heading and the text. Now, obviously this isn't styled. We're not passing any custom components here, but you can get the idea if I were to just copy paste the content of one of these articles, put it in here, and obviously there's no images, but you can see it makes it really easy to get going to do forms and lists and headings, bold, italic, pretty much everything. You can just do Markdown and then inject more functionality via React as you see fit. Now you might be wondering, okay, how do I manage all of the different posts that I'm going to create? Thanks to Next file-based routing, index is going to map to this, and if I had another folder under here nested at blog/whatever or whatever slug I want to use, for example, I have two blog posts down here, learn Next.js, and then a comparison between Next Gatsby and Create React App, and these files are then just automatically turned into those routes. That's how the file system surfaces those. But then if you want to have a blog page that shows all the different articles that you had, the way that I like to do it is by maintaining a list locally and then just mapping over all of the different items in that JSON object. So we have articles here that I keep in a data folder, and basically it's just the date, the slug that we want to use, and the title, and I iterate over these to then show the different blogs that are available, which is what you saw at /blog. So this is pretty cool. Let's look at adding some more functionality to our blog. A pretty common requirement of blogs is you want to capture leads for a newsletter or some kind of email sign up. And to do that, you need to create a form to capture that information. An example of what this might look like is right here on my blog. I have a form bottom that allows them to put in their email address and then click subscribe. Now, when they click subscribe, this is actually talking to an API route like we talked about in a previous module, which is then talking to the MailChimp API. Now, this is one way to do it. It's not terribly difficult, but it does require hosting that serverless function. And what if there was an even easier approach that allowed you to not have to manage any backend code here? And that's what we're going to work with today as we build a form for our blog. And the solution we're going to talk about is called StaticKit. And I really love their headline here, why write backend code if you don't have to. And I think they do a great job of simplifying the developer experience for capturing this information on your website, specifically for things like forms. Plus, as a pro, the site is also using Next, and it's got a great design. So we're going to mimic what they're showing here to use StaticKit to capture leads on a form that we create. And along with that, we're also going to use a component library in the process to make this a little bit easier. Now, I talked about Chakra and how it uses style system under the hood. We're going to be building a more of an application with Chakra in the next module. And another similar component library that's based off style system is called ThemeUI. And just to throw another example in here, we're going to use ThemeUI to style our blog and then to build out this form. So first things first, let's go back to the article we created. We'll get rid of all of this stuff and just say, this is my blog, save this, go back to localhost and see that renders here. Okay, so now we want to make a new component for our form. So let's make a new folder inside of here, components, and let's make form.js. This is going to contain the form, and we're going to inject this as a React component into our MDX. So to do that, we're going to use some components from ThemeUI. So if we go to the documentation, components, we're going to need to use a field for getting an email and name, and then also a button so that you can click on something. So let's look at field. We're going to need this, and let's say form. And eventually we're going to need to do logic to talk with StaticKit in here, but for now, let's just return out. We're going to need two different fields. Let's do field. The default on this.
Not sure if the code that I have here is for this project here. Seems different. So maybe I got the wrong one.
Actually, just skip this one here. We have email. We can have let's do just name, or even better, first name. And my linter is saying you need to sort these.
The only downside of these videos is that the audio is sure low.
Export this form. Now saying, do you have it installed ThemeUI, which is very true. I haven't done that. So let's do that. I think there's a couple different packages I need to install. ThemeUI, Emotion for styling, and then MDX. So let's go here and add those packages. Now, part of the setup for ThemeUI is a theme object that's going to include information about colors, topography, layouts, etc. So let's take this example theme, and we'll make a new file just inside of our folder, theme.js. There's some warnings about sorting, but we're going to just leave that for now. And then it's saying, okay, to add the theme to your application, you need to wrap the page in a theme provider such that it has access to all the different things that will populate your theme. Now, there's actually an example using Next.js that shows how you override the app so that you have it show up as a kind of layout. Let's see if I can find that. I think, oh yeah, it was on their GitHub. So we have examples, next, pages, app. So here's an example of providing that theme provider in the app. We're not going to do anything with color mode, and then making styled from emotion available. So we can take this, make our own _app, and get rid of some of the stuff that we don't need here. We don't need the header, we don't need the color mode, and our theme is going to be not under source. Okay, so we override the app, we have the component, we wrap it with the theme provider, we make style available, and then we render the component. So our MDX file is going to.
I think I got the wrong project. Maybe this is from somewhere else. So I think I'm gonna delete this one and get this one here. And now I wonder why I got the one that I have. Let's see. Yeah, it's the different projects. Oh, I think this one that I have is from another project, from another course, I think. So I'm gonna delete the one that I have here. I'm gonna copy this one. I'm thinking about starting from scratch. I'm just gonna spend, I think today I'm just gonna study a little bit this one that he has to understand the structure of it. What I'm thinking about doing is building one component for the topics, the main topics, and then using the same component for the subtopics again. And then having one component for the article structure, which I think is gonna be hard to do because I'm gonna have to think about how to pass the props in such a way that allows me to have enough flexibility for different kinds of articles. To remember, it is something that is kind of difficult to do because I'm not sure how I'm gonna deal with the images and that kind of stuff. Because obviously, depending on the article, you want to put the images at different places on the text. So, but I guess I can put options on the components, like flag variables, and then if I pass them as true or not, then it selects at which point the image is gonna go, and then I can just select based on the structure of the text. Yeah, but I wanna look at this code so I understand a little bit more how he does it for the structure and things like that. And then after I spend some time studying this, then I start one from scratch, and then I just copy the stuff that I think is good and that is relevant to what I'm gonna try to do, and then do something else for the rest of it. And I think I'm gonna reuse the code for the landing page for some parts of the site. I think I'm gonna keep the navbar as simple as possible because it's really annoying to make a drop down of the navbar, and that's why I'm thinking about doing the component of the sections of articles instead, and then on the navbar I put things like fac, about me, and or about, and then things like that. I think I'm also gonna put some. I'm gonna make a section called affiliates, and then inside of the section is gonna be a component with the affiliate links as well. Because in the beginning it's gonna be hard to know how to incorporate. This is the stuff that I'm thinking about that I don't have a good answer, which is how to incorporate the affiliate links into articles, because I roughly know what kind of stuff I want to write about, but then it doesn't go, I don't think the articles, like it doesn't feel right to just put the links there or to make the articles based on the links. That I don't want to do that, I think. But then at the same time, if I put a link there that it doesn't have anything to do with the article, then it doesn't make sense also. That's why I'm thinking about doing a section called affiliate links. And then maybe just putting explicitly in some of the articles. Not sure. And I think here there are pages for all the lessons. I'm not sure if this is the right thing though. If it is the blog, but it looks like some of the files is showing there. So this one I think is using Team UI here. but I think these are more projects stacked together.
So now if we go back to here, let's run this locally again. And we can close out of that, go back over to here. Okay, so now we're running locally again. Let's go back to our form. And we have just a basic component created here. Let's actually get this in our MDX file. So it's under components form.js. So let's import that. Import form from components and form. And then let's just say we're going to have this at the bottom. Okay. Can't resolve theme UI. Oh, I forgot to install the components. Let's do that too. So we set up theme UI, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you get the components for free. And
Oh, I think the problem with the other one was the command that was wrong. Because it was just next on the package.json file. No, not really sure.
And the reason I did that is to decouple it, because you can use theme UI without components if you would like. But the nice thing about the component package is that it gives you some, essentially makes it easier to scaffold these libraries using theme UI. So now that the components are available, we've imported the form. We should be able to then see it on page. Awesome. Okay, so we have a form. It has an email, has a first name. Let's also get a button in here. And we can just say submit. And the final piece would be a heading component. So we'll say, how about subscribe to my newsletter? Now we need to import these components. Okay. Subscribe to my newsletter.
I also changed the image here for the landing page. I realized that I can take a picture of the spreadsheets and then just blur the stuff. I did this with Canva. You just blur the text, and I think it looks better now. But I still haven't thought about what text I'm gonna put here, because if I describe the thing too much, then it gets too big, the text. But I couldn't find a way to describe it in a simple way for people that don't understand what methods are in JavaScript and Python. It's really hard to come up with something.
2 fields, and then a button. Now, the way that you can access styled system props as shorthand properties on components is the same with theme UI. So rather than having to create a completely separate component to do something like adding padding or margin, one of the really nice things is that you can just do, let's say, margin bottom of 4, and put that on the field, and that's going to create spacing, which makes it really, really fast to build UIs quickly and get those values right. Now, 4 seems like a little much. Let's maybe do 2. Yeah, that's a little better. Maybe 3 here. Okay, so we have our form. Let's actually hook this up with StaticKit and see the full process of capturing a lead. So we go back to StaticKit. It looks like step 1 is going to configure and deploy your plugin. So let's do that. We're going to install CLI. And I've already went ahead and made an account just for testing. So let's do that. We've got the CLI installed. Let's do a newsletter instead of contact form. Okay, newsletter added. And then we need to actually pass it the key here. So let's do that. Okay, so we have deployment of our newsletter at step 1. You can see it here. Cool, no submissions yet. Okay, now we need to install the client library. So let's go back to our application, install StaticKit React. Okay, now let's use it in this component. We can basically just pull things from here. So we're going to need use form. Let's change this to a function. And pull this out. And then wrap our fields with a form. Okay, this is saying prefer using arrow functions over traditional functions, but honestly, we can ignore this or just remove it because we need this function so that we can access React hooks. So we have a form. We're going to use that form and say it's a newsletter, the site. We're going to update this. Let's sort these to make it happy. If it's succeeded, we're not going to run it at all. We're just going to say thank you for signing up. We can even use heading here. And then we have our heading, we have a form. On submit, we're going to submit using the use form hook. And then we need to add names, which we have here, name, email, name, first name if we want to do that. Right now, we're just going to do email based on this example. And then the button needs to be a type of submit. Okay, let's say it's also, well, let's start first. Disabled when it's a state submitting. Now, the last thing that we need to do here is to wrap our application with the StaticKit provider. So then rather than provide this ID right here, I believe we need to do it at the app level. So I'm going to pull up their docs. Let's see, React. Yeah, there's a StaticKit provider that wraps the entire application. We can just do that here. Oops. Take that, put it here. Now I need my site ID. So we can just take that from the URL, I believe. Okay. Now our application is wrapped and StaticKit is available. Go to the form. I'm not sure if I need to explicitly include this here or not, but we'll go with that for now. Okay, let's run this locally and see if it works. Okay, it's running locally. Pull the console. We'll say email, submit. 404, not found. what did we do wrong? It didn't come through here. Okay.
Yeah, so the code for the blog is on the MDX file. I think I'm gonna delete everything else because it doesn't matter to me.
Let's go back to the docs. Use form key. They weren't even putting in the site ID here. Let's try that. Add their form key. We've already set it up with the site, so it knows about the site. This is saying, oh, version 1.02. I wonder if their docs are out of date. This has this. 2.0. And what did we install? Oops, what did we install? Static Kit 2.0. This must have just been released. Okay, good to know. So we wrap the application, we put the form key here. Looks like it's actually handle submit now. And say succeeded. Everything else appears to be the same. Okay, 2.0. That'll get you. Let's refresh here. Same email. Thank you for signing up. Awesome. Just had to know which version I was using. So I refresh the page. Boom. And you'll see it actually automatically picked up the name field because I defined it as one of the properties that was available. So if I go back here, I think I can actually just do this, make this bogus, and then first name. And it should capture that with name. Awesome, perfect. Okay, so now we have a form where we can capture leads. You can really do whatever you want here. You have the full customization of passing whatever information you want to capture from the client, and then now you can manage all of those leads inside of Static Kit. So this really simplifies that experience. It prevents you from having to set up any of that backend code, and I've been really happy using this for some of my other projects. I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so I think this wraps up the simple example for how you could set up a blog, manage your posts, and then integrate custom components like a form to capture leads, and talk with some kind of API like Static Kit to save off the information. I want to swing back and talk about the complete example of a full MDX blog with custom components that actually powers the Mastering Next.js website that I'm going to include as open source code as part of this course. So what you're looking at here is one of those posts. Let's actually look at what the code looks like to do this. So as you see, I have this file here. That's the next Gatsby create React app, and I mentioned before that there was this post file. Let's dive into what that actually looks like. So we define a mapping between a component in Markdown and then a custom React component for how we want to render things. So for this blog, I've actually created all these components myself, and these are just style.
Oh, this is the code that I had, I think. It's a more complete blog, I think.
Components that I'm using here to change the markup. But you could actually just plop in any component libraries, already pre-built components here if you wanted to. You have the full customization to provide whatever components you want to show how to render things. Now you can achieve a similar effect to this with Theme UI by changing the object of the theme object. So let me see if I can find an example here. I know there's a way. I think, yeah, here we go, styling MDX. So rather than saying, okay, H1 here, you could actually just provide styles inside of here, and that's the same thing. So there's a couple different ways you want to do it. For me, the way I had this one set up, I just completely did it myself. It might be easier for somebody sitting off the ground to provide their styles like this. I've been really impressed with Theme UI. So we have our components. I'm saying that I want to restrict it to a specific width, this main area, and then I use this MDX provider. Now this provider is going to take in the object of components, and it knows that now when I'm parsing this file and I'm looking for a link, or I'm looking for a strong tag, or an unordered list, when I'm using all these things, it now has the components available to map them to when it's rendering it out on the page. So the MDX provider makes those things available. And then still in this page React component, which again, it's all about composition. So you can do components inside of components here and see them be rendered. You see here's where that course block is, which is the custom marketing word down here at the bottom. Now this page component I'm actually using for all of the different pages, not only just the MDX page. And the reason is because it handles doing some of the OG tags for me inside of here, which I showed in one of the previous modules, and this is really nice and just simplifies it and abstracts another layer. So long story short, you can completely customize how you want your blog to look, what components you want to use, plus having the complete customization of every single component, every single piece of your MDX post. So with that, that's the end of this module. We've talked about MDX, we've talked about CMS and their differences. We've set up a really simple example, talked about how you can turn that into something that's even more complex, how you can manage those posts, and then the big benefit of MDX, which is using those custom React components inside your post, building a form, using something like Static Kit, and using theme components, all of that good stuff, all inside of this episode. So thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next module. Cheers.
Yeah, so this is the stuff that he was talking about, I think, of the styles.
Hey guys, how's it going? I got a really What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jake and I give weekly product design tutorials and design related content. Today's video I want to share my process for approaching a dark UI theme. So recently on a project I was in charge of building out the entire design system for this dark theme UI, and I've learned a lot along the way. It's kind of the first time I've actually had to do this at scale. I've done a lot of dark UI kind of as visual explorations, for portfolios or just for fun, but as far as actually building out an entire scalable design system, this was new to me, so I learned a lot. Hopefully I have some nuggets of information that you guys will take some value from. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So usually the first thing I'll do before starting any type of UI design project is I'll search for some inspiration. And I used to have almost too much pride to do this because as designers we pride ourselves on being creatives and we want to basically do everything from scratch. But the more I've worked in the industry and been on these really tight deadlines, I've realized we don't really have that much time to recreate the wheel always, as much as we'd like to. So it's always good to get a sense of best practices and like what other top designers are doing. So for this project in particular, we actually pitched the client two separate visual directions. One was more of a lighter theme and one was a darker theme. So basically pitched them some really flashy homepages, and the client really liked the visual direction of the darker theme. They thought it was more in line with their future vision of the brand. But it's one thing to have these really flashy homepages. It's another thing to kind of carry this theme out through all the interior pages of this product that we're delivering. So we wanted to make sure this dark theme could scale. But at any rate, the first thing I did was I went to, I think it was Dribbble initially, or I use Pinterest a lot too because you can create mood boards really easily that way. But just to get a sense of what other designers are doing and check out some like best practices I guess for dark UI. So let's do a search for dark UI. And just like at a very high level, let's try to get a sense of what other designers are doing. So here's what looks like an analytics dashboard by, hope I'm not butchering his name, but Kostya Barhatiuk. Looks like some really nice work here. But just kind of notice what this designer has done. So I'm noticing these containers down here. There's actually very low contrast with these containers against the darker background, whereas these containers have a bit higher contrast. And just visually, it looks like these are a bit closer to us just because of the use of color. Notice the background is not a black, right? Dark theme we think like black usually, or it's maybe like very dark gray, but this designer kind of opted for more of that blue undertone that kind of sets the tone for everything else. Again, like these containers, very low contrast, and then stuff they want to highlight, they're using a bit more color. The palette itself, it's pretty sparse. It's only a few different colors. It's more of a, what do they call it, like a monochromatic color scheme, right? Where it's just more or less hues of blue. Then for these values here, we have the green and red. So not too many colors. The text really pops against the darker background. I think accessibility-wise, this is looking pretty good. There's some of these numbers that are, I guess, of lesser visual importance intentionally that might not pass the AA or AAA accessibility standard. But overall, this is looking pretty solid. Let's check out another darker theme. Let's see, something that catches my eye. This is pretty cool. So actually, I've seen this one before. Oh, it's the same designer. Wow, this designer's pretty awesome. Shout out Kostya. But let's make this full screen. So this looks like some sort of server UI. So it's like a geolocation UI basically of all the servers, and here's like a little key down here. Again, though, it's not a complete black background, right? Although there's some sort of radial gradation going on here. And then this looks like this container they wanted to separate a bit. And again, the text is looking really bold against this really dark background. Good use of color here. I like the blue shades here. Let's just try to find one more example. Stand out on these darker UIs, and that's not really the point. The point is for these dark UIs to emit very low light. They can be used at nighttime really easily. And the colors really pop out against the dark. There's a lot of contrast between the color and the text. So if you were to make these containers, too much into the lighter colors, these accent colors and these numbers would not pop out as much. So yeah, these are some great examples. One other thing that you guys should definitely do, I think, when designing dark theme UIs is head over to like material design or some other like industry leader. This is Google's material design. They kind of set the standard for a lot of our responsive web products these days. They do a lot of research, basically how these digital products mimic the real world. One thing that I look at in particular is their take on a dark theme and kind of their approach. And there's some great stuff in here. They have like core principles, basically darken with gray rather than a pure black to express elevation, color with accents. Again, like these dark themes conserve energy, so you don't want to use a lot of color. And accessibility is a huge one. It's actually, I noticed on this project, accessibility was a bit of a pain trying to get everything to meet the AAA standard that our client wanted. But one thing that I want to show you that I think is really important, if I can find it. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about with elevation. So notice on the left here, you have a lighter theme and how elevation would be expressed, right? So we have a white against a white. So we have a white container against a white background. And this container color is not changing. The only thing that's changing here is the shadow to kind of create that perception of depth. Where on the right, we have the same shadow principles, but the color of this container is actually changing. It's becoming a lighter shade of gray to create that perception that this container is closer to us. So the idea here is that there would be a light source kind of shining down from above. So if you would imagine, as this container gets closer to that light source, it becomes lighter and lighter. So this product is, in a sense, mimicking real-world conditions here. And they go into how to create these elevation principles. So what's happening here is you basically start with a very dark color. I think they recommend the hex code 121212 to start with as your background color, and then to create these different levels of elevation, what you're doing is you're adding a white overlay with a certain level of opacity against that dark background and then sampling that color. So that's like your level 1, this is your level 2, this is your level 3, et cetera, et cetera. And as you increase in elevation, you'll notice that this overlay is becoming lighter and lighter gray. And this is gonna make more sense when I show you my file. So I'm gonna link this below as well as some other good resources that you guys can check out for dark UIs, but this would be a great place to start to kind of get in the right mindset and to really start thinking about how this dark theme will scale, right? It's one thing to create a very flashy, one flashy page, right? But you gotta start thinking about how is this gonna scale across an entire project? Like what if there are throughout a product, what if there are more levels of elevation than just this? How are we gonna systematize that? How are we gonna componentize that in Sketch or whatever design tool we're using? So for this tutorial, I actually whipped up something for you guys in Figma. Fun fact, I'm starting to use Figma a lot more. That last Sketch update really kind of was the last straw for me. I don't know what they were thinking in terms of their layer styles and text styles and how they're handling it with that folder system, but it just was not intuitive for me. And I've also just been wanting to dive into Figma anyway. And in the agency context, I think it just makes so much more sense because we constantly have designers just sending sketch files back and forth, and Figma allows us to collaborate in the same file. There's only like one source of truth, which is really awesome. Even though we use Sketch and Abstract, but I'm rambling now. But anyway, here's the wireframe I cooked up for you guys. I know it looks really shitty, but again, this is a very low fidelity concept here. I was just trying to get the point across. Basically, it's a location-based UI, so we'd have a map area, as I so nicely denoted here, map area. I didn't want to actually design the map because I was going to use an external tool to do this anyway, so I'll show you that in a second. But essentially, we have locations. Let's say this was like, I don't know, New York City. Looking at this, right? Design theme is you take another color, you put it right on top of that 121212, and then you sample your main brand color. So this is like my primary brand purple right here. And then you basically drop the opacity of this to somewhere around 8%. You can kind of play with this, see what looks good, but now you have a slightly more purple background color. And then what you do is you would just sample this color. So now this 181621 would be your initial background color, which kind of sets the tone for all these other elements, like all these other containers. So that's what I did here for this background color. Now to get the colors of all these other elements, right, like so the color scheme of this map and these containers, I did another thing that Google recommends you do is you literally just take a white square, So let's make this white. And you put it over that themed background color that you made, and you just drop the alpha value to create your different levels of elevation. So if I just bring up my little sticker sheet here, I wouldn't call this a design system yet, but basically I decided that this next level up, so this L1 on top of the L0, would be a white square at 4% opacity. So let's just drop this to 4%, and then you just sample this color, and that would sort of be your next level up. So that's like this guy right here, and this should match with this L1 here. So that's how I got that next level of elevation to start creating that depth. And because it's a white square at a certain alpha value, you're getting those undertones of that background layer, of that background purple. So that background layer is really setting the tone for everything else. And that's really how I built this palette. So I did the same thing for L2, right? So this time it was a white square at 6% opacity, pure white. So let's draw out, make this white, make the alpha value 6, and that's how I got this. Let me sample it first. And that's how I got this next level up, this L2, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this map itself, I did not vectorize this myself. That would obviously take forever. I actually used a tool called Mapbox that you're looking at here. And I didn't really take too much time to consider what the user might actually need to see in terms of like labeling. I made this really simple just for this tutorial's sake. But you can actually style the different elements of the map. So this background layer, I just made the same color as my L0. Then this next level up, I would make my L1. And then this guy with these buildings, I made that L2. So that's how I made that. I basically just took a screenshot of this and pasted it right in here. And then these guys, like this container and this container, are that L3 value. So that would be like a 9%. And these are sort of arbitrary. There's no rhyme or reason to these values I chose. Google's a little more mathematical about their approach, but I just kind of went by feel and what looked right and then documented them here. So that's sort of how I established this like purple scale here for these containers. And it's all derived basically from this primary color on top of that Google 121212 recommended background color. So you got a really consistent visual feel here just by using these white overlays and these different shades of that purple. So that's one key part of it. So the next key part with these dark themes is to make sure all of your text is readable.
So I think this stuff allows you to write the files with this MDX extension, and then you can write it differently. And I'm gonna have to study a lot because from this looks like you build the whole website like this. Because this is this page here. It seems like it's mixing some JS with MDX as well. But that's really weird because then you don't use the components here. It's completely different. So I imagine this component is this one, has to be, so. Because I wasn't imagining that it would be like that. I was imagining more that I would be able to create the components and same thing as it is on Next.js, and then only on one section of the page I put another style of formatting, like MDX or something like that, to write the article itself. But then if I have to do everything like this, then we're gonna have to learn everything again, I think. Because the issue is how to think about the components and the flow of data across the whole thing. That's the challenge, I think. Because in the beginning, obviously, it doesn't matter that much, but the more articles I have, then the more confusing it gets, and it's better to think about now how it's going to be structured, everything, so that it can scale well. So I think I have to study this MDX, the kit. I have to study theme UI, then this static kit here, understand this, and then also understand how this MDX works with Next.js. This is also different as well. Yeah, I think it's gonna be better to watch the videos first about the other tutorials to see these perspectives. The only issue is that they are very long, so. This is the stuff that I was assuming and that I'm expecting that it's gonna take a long time because I actually code the thing is probably not that hard, but I understand how. I think that's the most challenging part, is think about and understand how the structure of the thing works. Usually I spend a lot of time on these things as well.
readable and you are hitting all of your accessibility requirements. So, for example, the client I'm currently on, they really were pushing for AAA accessibility, so we wanted to make sure we met all of those. One thing you'll notice is I do have some very high contrast text here, so we have the pure white text against the container that's sitting on, and we have some lower contrast text. And I did this almost intentionally because I wanted to make the email address more important than the title email. I want the phone number to be more important than this guy here. So this is the hierarchy I kind of intentionally chose. I intentionally made this lower contrast, and as you can see here with my naming, I didn't name this a pure white. I named it a high contrast, and I didn't name this guy a gray. I just named it low contrast because ultimately, if I wanted to also create a light theme for this, we would have a high contrast for the light theme as well as a high contrast for the dark theme. So notice for layer that it's sitting on. So
Yeah, I definitely think I'm gonna use this MDX because it seems to be the best. Either these are the CMS, Content Management System, for the blog specifically. But the thing is, I just have to learn this stuff here. Shouldn't be that hard, I think. I think it's just a combination of the Next.js and the MD or whatever you say, this syntax to write tests, to write articles. It shouldn't be that hard, I think. But it is worth, I think, spending. That's how I'm envisioning now. First, watch a bunch of videos. That's usually how I do things as well. Watch all these videos and then see multiple different opinions on the thing, and then try to break down the principles. And then after that, I start creating the project and learning as I go.
For the
I think that's
majority
the
of
plan.
web
As a web developer,
Hey team, we're gonna learn how to.
I'm gonna separate by the ones that take less time until the ones that take more time to watch. Another thing I can do is build 2 different blogs, like build one just to get some practice. So I don't watch a bunch of videos and then I start at least doing something. Yeah, but here I thought it would have more things to study, but it looks really simple because it's a simple website you did there. Just this component, then you're wrapping the app with the theme UI thing, and then you're putting the themes here. And that's the thing that I was planning on doing as well, which is to make the themes available for the whole application, but then the structure of the things separated by components. Like more thinking about the layout of the browser as different sections of divs instead of putting together the different sections. I think that doesn't work really well. So I'm thinking about the navbar, then a component with the topics, the categories, then some article. I think on the front page is not going to be an article, it's going to be more about me. I think I'm going to take the section that I have from the landing page, this section here. I'm going to modify this text, but I'm going to leave the rest the same, I think, and modify this as well. So it's going to be the navbar, then instead of this thing, it's going to be a list of topics, and then I'm going to put this stuff here, and then I'm going to copy this, and then just change the text as well. Copy this thing here. and remove the FAQ. And then once they click on the categories, it's gonna go to another page, and the other page is gonna have subcategories, and then it's gonna have the structure of the article. And the article is probably gonna be one component. I think I'm gonna try to create the same structure that Medium and these other sites have, where you have the article here on the left, and then you have some space on the right to put other stuff. And I'm also thinking about putting a MetaMask wallet connection on top, and then thinking about later on how I'm gonna integrate blockchain with the blog. But first, I have to focus on one thing at a time. So first I want to focus on getting the structure, and then start writing the articles. I don't know which ones I'm gonna write first, because honestly, I think the easiest thing to do would be to write the stuff about Python and JavaScript, I think. But I don't feel like doing this first because, yeah, it's just I just spent a bunch of time studying this, making all the videos, and there's a lot of other stuff that I wanna study as well. So, but I should have some articles about programming first, I think. So, oh yeah, the other thing that I have to create is a page that has. I don't remember where I saw this, but I saw that in some place they said that the way that they test for things is that they make a button available in a page, and then there's no feature behind it. So let's say I don't know, get this article here or something like that, and they don't create the article, they just create the button, and then they study they do data analysis on the client behavior to see how many people are clicking on the link. And if the amount of people that are clicking on the link is high, then they create the article, and if it is not, then they don't create it. So I think I'm gonna do something like this, where I'm gonna create a component that says that the article doesn't exist yet, but coming soon or something like that. And I'm gonna create the structure based on that, and then I make the articles based on the structure. I'm gonna create another folder here. And I think I'm gonna do it from scratch, not gonna copy anything. I'm just gonna study this one and then manually pass to the other one. I'm just gonna search for Next.js segmentation. I wonder if I should force myself to do it with TypeScript that I don't like. I hate using TypeScript because you have to research all the types for the components and things like that, and there's a lot of annoying mistakes you get. But I think I should try to do it with TypeScript. I'll probably end up doing it with JavaScript, but at least start with TypeScript, and then if it is taking too much time to solve the issues, then go back to JavaScript. The most important thing for me is to have a lot of articles as soon as possible, then I worry about the rest of the stuff. I at least want to have some articles, and I have a lot of ideas of stuff that I want to write about. I'm thinking about a section with animals, for example, then making articles about animals. Like, there's a lot of things that I want to study, and by studying them, I'm going to create the articles. And also, I think I'm going to use a technique that I saw in another video that is called Content Hub, where you have one main piece of central content, let's say, and then from that piece, you modify the format and you add additional information, or modify the format to spread the content into other platforms. So what I'm thinking about doing is writing the article first, doing a bunch of research, writing the article, then using that article as a template to create videos for YouTube. I think that's gonna be a very good idea. I'll be right back. I'm gonna use the sheets even though I don't like it because it is recommended for formatting.
Websites, especially personal websites for developers, you really don't need to be using JavaScript files for your pages. Instead, you can use Markdown. Doing this will give you some amazing benefits, such as faster load time, and it's easier to develop and add content. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Markdown files in Next.js. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a new Next.js project, or if you already have one, you can use that. The first thing you're going to want to do is open up package.json, and you're going to want to copy and paste these three dependencies into your project: MDX.js Loader, React, and NextMDX.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I'm only gonna use this MDX on the page for the article. The other pages, I'm gonna use the components. I'm gonna do the normal stuff, and then the article page I have But the thing that I don't know is how to combine this with props, because then ideally I would have the structure for the articles, and then the only thing that I would change is the text and the images, and that way it would save me a lot of time from having to format everything every time.
These three packages will allow us to quickly and easily add MDX or MD pages. Once you have that, go ahead and run yarn or npm to install those dependencies. Next, we're going to want to create a next.config.js file. And inside of here, we're going to want to add the following 6 lines. Now, these can be found on the Next.js website or their docs. And essentially, all this is doing is it's using this dependency here that we just installed, and it's
Yeah, the other project had this thing here. I'm gonna copy this from this guy. Actually, maybe we should leave this metadata here. Or this head thing.
exporting it. Now let's get into the fun part. Go ahead and create a new file called about.mdx. That'll be inside the pages directory. Now we can go navigate to that file. And previously, if you didn't have the packages we just installed and that next config set up, you'd get an error here. But as you see, there's no error. Let's go ahead and add some content. Now, inside of this file, we can use Markdown syntax. So I can give an h1 tag and say about, and we see that's coming through. And if I inspect, you see we're getting an h1 tag. All right, so I just went ahead and added some more content. Let's take a look at this. So it's coming through. Now you can also add components inside of here. So for example, if we created a folder called components, let's create a button component. So we can just say export default function and call this button. So just a basic React component. We can return just a simple button. We'll give it text of click me. And how we use this is inside of any Markdown file or MDX file, just like you would in a JavaScript file, we can just say import button from components/button.js. And then we can use it just as you would in any JavaScript file. So let's see, can't find it, probably spelled something wrong, right? Because remember we have to go back one directory. Okay, there we go. And this button works. And just to show you that, we can give it an on-click, and let's just send an alert. All right, let's go test it out. There we go. So you can see that your components come through nicely. So you can go ahead and add all the content, all the components you want. The final thing I'm going to show you is how you can actually style all of this. So you can't add styles in Markdown. But what we can do is we can add a component that will map each Markdown element to its tag, and we can style that. Go ahead and create a new file in components.
So it does work. Sure. I guess, yeah, I just have to install the MDX extension, I think. Because the only thing that was different on mine is the formatting.
MDX components, and that should have the extension .js. Now here we're going to say const MDX components, and then we're going to export this. And essentially what we're going to do here is, like I said, we're going to map the Markdown element to its HTML counterpart, and we can add styles to that HTML tag. So for example, this will map to a p tag. So we can say p colon, pass in the props, arrow notation, and we want this to return a p tag, just like that. And then what we can do is first, let's pass in our props. Then we can add any styling we want. So let me go ahead and say style, and give it a font size of 30 pixels. Now nothing is coming through yet, so to have this take effect, we need to open up _app.js, import those styles. Then we can also import MDX provider. And this is from MDX.js React. And then we can wrap the provider around our page props. And then this takes in the property MDX components. We'll set that equal to our MDX components. And we need to wrap this with braces like that. And this provider here should be components. There we go. That's looking good. Okay, so got our styles here. And if we go back, now you can see is the p tags are 30 pixels. I can make this 25, and it gets a bit smaller. Let's go ahead and style one more. What if I had some inline code? And let's say this property was 10 lines long. We don't want to throw that into here because that would take a lot of space. So what we can do is we can map this to custom code. And then above here, we can say const custom code equals, pass in the props, use some arrow notation, and then we can return whatever we want. So again, we're going to return a code tag, pass in those props, then we can get whatever style we want. So for example, we'll give it a background color of light blue. And if we check that out, there it is. It's coming through right there. So that's how you can use custom properties. And that's it, guys. So as you can see, we were able to use Markdown pages, and inside of there, we can add custom components and map and use whatever styles we want. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this.
Thinking about how I'm gonna do the components. Because in the main page, like I said before, I'm gonna do the categories, but then, so when people click those categories, first I'm gonna have to map, I think, between them. Yeah, I'm gonna do another component, and then on that component, I'm gonna have another component that shows the categories, I think. Maybe not, maybe I just need one component, yeah. Yeah, one component, and then inside of the component, I render children, and then I map based on the topics. And then the name of the file is gonna be, the name of the component is gonna be the name of the topic, because that way I can link based on the name. Yeah, so do something like, and then here I put the categories, and then I pass here to the components. And then each category that I want to make, I make a page based on that. And then that page is going to render categories again, I think. With different, the categories component with different categories. I'm just trying to think in my mind how I'm gonna make it so that, but I guess that the style of the rest of the page I can leave outside of that component. Yeah, then I can create another component called articles. And on the component called articles, I put the text. So all the articles page are gonna have the same thing. And the other stuff that I have to think about. Yeah, I don't think I need to put routers because I'm using Next.js. Just put the links in each component, and that handles the navigation. Yeah, but maybe there is a way so I don't have to copy the navbar and the categories on all the pages. So I'm thinking that the site is always going to show the navbar and the categories. The only thing that's going to change is which categories are going to be displayed. So the main categories are shown. Then from those, it navigates towards each specific page, and then each specific page has its own subcategories, I think. Yeah, but that's the question, because then, let's say I want to move from article, because what is the final layer there? That's the question. But because the thing is, from the main categories, let's say I have a category called programming, and then on the category, there's going to be a lot of subcategories. For all the subcategories, I want the category component to be the same, but it's only going to be different from one level above, which is the programming main category, which is it's going to be a different category component displaying on the page. So the question is, on each one of those pages, how I'm going to display the same. But I guess it's just simple because all I have to do is put this. Yeah, but the thing is I don't want to repeat the same name for each one. So maybe I'll pass as a props, I think. That's probably the best thing to do. Because then I define once here, and then... Yeah, but then... Because if I scale, then... If there's a lot of different articles, then I don't want necessarily to have all of them in the same. It would be better to have... To be able to branch them, I think. So only have the main categories on this page, and then for whatever subcategories. Because the thing here that I'm thinking about is how to make the distinction about the pages that are main categories and the pages that are going to be subcategories. And how to deal with the structure that is going to change from each one. I can put them in a different folder as well. But for the code, I don't think it... I have to think more about it to see how I'm gonna do it. Maybe I can use SkyliDraw to illustrate what I'm thinking about. To think what is the best way to do it. I think I'm gonna do that. And then I'll watch these videos off stream. Oh, the other one, that's interesting. So the other one is already using port 3000. Okay. So it's using 301. Yeah, I always wondered what would happen if one is using. It looks like it's not working. The page cannot be found. Okay, so let me stop this one, try that. I think maybe it has something to do with the MDX thing. That has to be index.mdx instead of tsx. But maybe it's because I was using the port and now for some reason it didn't work. No. So what's the issue? Yeah, so I suspect that I have to use this MDX here if I wanna use. I can't just do index.tsx and then load the .mdx thing whenever I want. Yeah, now it works. So if I want to use this next.mdx, I have to use this file, the mdx extension, which is annoying. So what I was thinking about is so here on top is going to be the navbar. Let's see, app programming. Here I have, I'm not sure how I'm gonna call this, if it's health and fitness or I wanna study the human body, but it isn't necessarily health and fitness, more, I guess I can put it as health and fitness as the main category and then subcategories. Yeah, that's another question, is at what point I'm going to divide into other categories, because I can have, instead of health and fitness, I can have like weight training, neuroscience, things like that, and then inside of each category I can have multiple different categories. So it becomes, because then I don't want to study or follow the scientific methods or whatever to classify the categories. I want to classify more in what I'm thinking about writing articles about. So yeah, but whatever, I think about this later. I just gotta do this stuff instead of thinking about it too much. Here's gonna be economics. And blockchain. This is another question because then I can put blockchain inside of the economics thing. But I think it's better to leave it as a separate category. I should also think about this, because if I have articles that fit into multiple categories, maybe I should have something, or think about a way that is better to put them on multiple different parts of the website. That's the most challenging part that I'm thinking about, is how to do, because what I have here is going to be a graph structure or a tree structure for the articles and the topics that I'm writing, and how I'm gonna make it so that they are connected since the structure of components of the website. So inside of this I would have multiple different ones. And here as well. The question is how I structure the components here. And I was thinking about the navbar stays on all the pages, then here I have the same component to build this section here of categories for the layer 2 here, and the only thing that would change is the name that I pass to the component would be a component, then I pass the names as the categories. And then on this other section I have the same thing, and then passing the names as categories. And then inside of the category component will be something that renders a link, and that the link goes to another page with this. The link goes to another page that has an article component. Yeah, maybe this is fine, and then because then I can separate the article. So I would have another layout for the page that has the article and the page that has the categories. Yeah, but then how, like, is it better to connect the article page with the categories so that I determine the structure on the level of the category and then pass as props the stuff that is going to change on the article, the page, the article component. Yeah, I was thinking about having the thing I'm not sure is whether or not the article is gonna be a component or a page. I think it has to be a component, and then I use the component to the page, but then how I'm gonna write the... So maybe that's the point I have, the confusion I have is how to press props on the MDX. I think it's just normal, probably, because the way that you render the component here, so you probably just pass in the way that you always do. So here, instead of having form, I would have article here. Yeah, but ideally I would have the TSX page here, and then the article component itself would be the thing that uses the MDX. So if the article is using the MDX, how would I make it so that when it receives the props, it changes the structure of the page? Not the structure, but the content. Oh, maybe, what if I put another file here? Wonder if I do like this, it's gonna find the page there. Probably not, but yeah. So why is this not working? And now it's showing something different, at least. So maybe now it's working. Oh, there we go. Nice. So the reason why it wasn't working is because I did it the wrong way here. Because I erased this stuff from Next.js. So it does work. Nice. Now that makes things a lot easier, I think. And I still have to spend a lot of time thinking about how I'm gonna make the structure of this. Because this part here is confusing of which way to go about it. I don't think it's that hard. It's probably not hard at all to code, actually. If I can use the MDX as a component, because then I make the article in the components folder as an MDX file, and then I put the components inside of the... Yep, but that's not the best, probably. The most intuitive way that makes sense to me is to create the template of the way that the page of the article is going to look like once, and then reuse that for all the articles. But the question is what is the best way to do that? Because in the way that React works, it works like this, where you pass the props down from the top component, and then each time you want to generate, you pass different props, and then that makes the page look different based on the data that the article is going to have. But then how is going to be the MDX of the article is going to be... Because if it is on a component, it doesn't make sense as well, because then the component that has the MDX would have to receive the props from a top component. So I guess each page has to be done with the MDX, and then the article is just a normal component, I think. Yeah, but that makes no sense as well, because this is the stuff that I have to clarify, I think. It's the connection between the props and MDX. And so probably this is the way you should do it. I guess the question is how I'm gonna know or keep track of the. There's not that many, but it would be good to find a principle that allows me to keep track of which category is at which level. Because let's say I decide to do more categories in the future. So for example here I have 2 layers. That's what I'm thinking about right now, but let's say I want to split Python into multiple different layers. The way that I'm thinking about is doing inside of the programming, I put all this stuff about data structures and algorithms, Python and JavaScript and things like that. But if that starts to get too big, then what I can do is then move some articles from this level into another level, which for example would go below the Python level here. So before they were at the same level, but then I put them under the Python level. And in order to do that, I'll need to think about an easy way to keep track of each level each article is at, so I can move them around to different levels if I want to. That's the thing, the challenge I think here. Because that way it becomes a lot easier as I write more articles and think about other stuff to write, to shift the categories around. My concern is that I don't think about this stuff now, and then I do it in a way that later on, once I have a multiple or a bunch of different articles, it's gonna take me potentially not hundreds of hours, but like hours upon hours to change each single page and change all the props and all this stuff so that I reorganize all the articles. It's very difficult to think about it. What's the best way? Yeah, the only way I'm thinking about it now is to do this category thing and then pass the names as props of the categories, and then it generates a link on the other component to go for the page that has the article for that thing. Yeah, that's another difference, is that unless I always leave I think that's a good solution actually. Like I always leave the categories and then I just change which categories are displayed based on which page it is. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create another file, and then on that file I create an object, and then with the object I create a tree structure that has the categories, and then I always import that into the other files, and then I put the categories like that, and then I always render the categories on each page, and that allows me to have flexibility on the way that I want people to navigate the site. I think that's the best approach, probably. Because if I'm always showing the category, then it doesn't matter, because then I can put, instead of doing these levels here, I can put whatever categories I want on the page. And then I can decide what the structure is going to be by changing the main file that is going to have the categories. But it's not going to be a component, so I don't think it's a good idea. I think I'll put on the main folder. And then here is going to be like an object. And then inside of this object I have multiple descriptions here, main or layer 1. I think I'm gonna do layers because then it allows me to, I don't have to think about too much. Yeah, I'm gonna spend some time thinking about this off stream. But I wanna do something that that allows me to easily change later on the layers as well. Because I think it is interesting as well to test, to put, for example, in one of these pages displayed a main category again on the page, like here. So normally you would only go from the main category into subcategories, but then I can decide to test every now and then to put a main category in the links of subcategories, and I can shift around like that. But if I make here layer 1 and then I put the main categories and I put layer 2, then that would only work for, I would have to keep all of them in the same level, let's say. Because then the way that I'm gonna be using this on the files is importing this and then mapping over the, or getting the value of the key and then mapping over that. So each one is gonna be an array, and the array is gonna contain all the categories. And then on the file, I map over this and I display on the category component the sections there. That's probably the best way. So here you're gonna have a component called category. And then here, it's gonna render children and it's gonna map. No, it's gonna get the props and map those props and then render children based on that. And then both the category and the navbar are always gonna show on every page, I think, and the footer as well. The only thing that changes between them is gonna be which categories appear, which categories show up, and the article components. And I think the article is gonna be the MDX thing, so I'm probably gonna put here. But I'm not sure if I can do an article as a component using this MDX extension. So I have to check if that's possible, or if it is the way to do it. Yeah, but then the stuff that we change in the middle is the article component, which would be done with MDX, and then I can change for, because each article is going to be different anyway. I was thinking about doing the structure of the article and then changing the data, but I think each article is going to be different anyway. So it's probably better to just leave the section of the article open, and then I will just get, through practice, I'll become better at writing the MDX for writing the articles and then putting images and videos and things like that. And maybe, and I think, yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna separate, I'm gonna do this structure on top of the article component, if it is possible to do the article component. So that way there's navbar, categories, then footer, and then in the main section is gonna be probably 80% of the page devoted to the article, which is going to be this MDX component, which is going to be the page actually. Oh no, it has to be a component, because then the pages would have the other components that always stays the same. Then the remainder of the 20% I can think about stuff to do in the future. I think that's the best way. I kind of leave it open to do whatever I want. I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna watch all these videos. Not all, I'm gonna watch a lot of them. Hopefully I can finish most of them today. I'm gonna go train as well, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna have time. I'm training, probably play poker as well. Yeah, but I'm gonna watch this as much as I can, and then probably tomorrow I'm gonna come back and continue to do this. I'm only gonna start coding once I clarify a little bit more this MDX stuff, how it works and how to connect this with the Next.js code. And once I have more clarity over how, which I think I've got some decent clarity on how it's going to be the structure of the page, and then after I think about this stuff, then I can start coding, because I think the coding, the CSS, and all this other stuff is the easiest part. I think the hardest part is thinking about the structure. So it's worth spending more time thinking on this. So I'll probably come back tomorrow and continue to do this. If not, then almost sure I'll come back on Monday.